Hello, everyone. In this revision lesson today, let's discuss this question from October-November 2024, variant 4.2. This question over here reads, the key study by Shoshani and Steinmetz in 2014 on using positive psychology in schools used questionnaires to gather data. So this particular study, if you recall, is a key study from the unit Health Promotion. The key study by Shoshani and Steinmetz 2014 on using positive psychology in schools used questionnaires. Another piece of information that I'd like to pick up from here is this is about using questionnaires to be able to gather data. These included the Rosenberg self-esteem scale, the first one, and the general self-efficacy scale, both of which used 4-point scales. Now let's pick up on the important piece of information. Like I say, we need to read our question at least twice before attempting it. So having a look at this question, the question says, the key study by Shoshani and Steinmetz in 2014 on using positive psychology in schools used questionnaires to gather data. These included the Rosenberg self-esteem scale, that is RSE, also referred to as RSES, and the general self-efficacy scale, both of which used 4-point scales. Now, if you recall, there were 5 different questionnaires that were used in the study by Shoshani and Steinmetz, and they were brief symptoms inventory, BSI, number 2, Rosenberg self-esteem scale, number 3, the general self-efficacy scale, number 4, satisfaction with life scale, and number 5, life orientation test, a revised version. So these are the scales that we had studied about earlier as well. Here is the first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, and the fifth one. Here, the life orientation test. Getting back to the question over here reads, outline the Rosenberg self-esteem scale. Now, out of those 5 different questionnaires that were used, what the examiner has done is the examiner has pinpointed one of the questionnaires from there and has asked us to outline this. Now, the information that has been provided by the examiner to us is this is from the original research paper. The RAC, that is Rosenberg self-esteem scale, a 10-item unidimensional measure of a person's overall evaluation of his or her worthiness as a human being. See, self-esteem. We're talking about self-esteem over here. We're talking about an individual's overall evaluation of his or her worthiness as a human being. The RSC is the most widely used measure of self-esteem and requires respondent to rate items on a 4-point Likert type scale. So 1, this is the most widely used measure of self-esteem, and this requires respondent to rate on items on a 4-point Likert type scale, ranging from 1 that is strongly disagree to 4 that is strongly agree. The RSES, that is Rosenberg self-esteem scale, contains an equal number of positively and negatively worded items. Now we're talking about positively worded items and we're talking about negatively worded items. After reversing the negatively worded items of the RSC, responses are summed to generate scores ranging from 10 to 40, with lower scores indicating lower self-esteem. The RSC had a coefficient alpha of 0.77. In the current study, tests of internal consistency produced by Cronbach's alpha coefficients of 0.83 to 0.86 for the RSC measure. Now, this part is something that is or can be put to use, whereas the other part, the latter part that I just read, this isn't something that you'd have to use in your examination. So having a look at the RSES. Now let's have a look at the number of marks. The number of marks over here, there are 2 marks we've been asked to outline. If you could simply pick up any 2 points from this, that would help you. In fact, there are 2 points, 3 points here. So 10 items measure. There was a 4-point Likert type scale. High scores indicate high self-esteem. What is this about? The name in itself says Rosenberg's self-esteem scale. Now, if you talk about this part, I believe this part, this one, where this says, After reversing the negatively worded items of the RSE, responses are summed to generate scores ranging from 10 to 40, with lower scores indicating lower self-esteem. I'd like to spend a minute explaining this to you. After reversing the negatively worded items of the RSE. Now, what does this mean? When a questionnaire like the Rosenberg self-esteem scale, it includes negatively worded items, for example, statements such as, I feel like a failure. This is a negatively worded item. These items need to be reversed before analysis. Now, why is it that we need to reverse these items before analysis to be able to ensure consistency in scoring? Now, this means if the original score is from 1 that is strongly disagree to 4 that is strongly agree, a negatively worded item would have its scores flipped. I repeat, flipped or reversed, so that higher numbers always indicate higher self-esteem. Now, for instance, if I say a participant strongly agrees, that is, if a participant strongly agrees, that is the fourth number with I feel like a failure, this should indicate low self-esteem. However, without reversing, a high score on this item would incorrectly contribute to a high overall self-esteem score. Now, this is, just pick up any 2 points from here and you'd be able to get 2 marks on this particular question. Now, this was question number 5A. Let's quickly move on to question number 5B. If we have a look at question number 5B, the question over here reads, outline the general self-efficacy scale. Now, this particular question, remember, out of the 5 different questionnaires that were used by Shoshani and Steinmetz, this was, I believe, the third, if you recall. Yeah, this one, the general self-efficacy scale. So what was this Rosenberg self-esteem scale about? This was about self-esteem. And the second question, this is about self-efficacy. Now, taking this ahead, going back to what the examiner has to show us, this scale was developed to assess a general sense of perceived self-efficacy to predict coping with daily hassles and stressful events. For example, I can always manage to solve difficult problems if I try hard enough. I am confident that I could deal efficiently with unexpected events. It contains 10 items and responses are made on a 4-point scale, ranging from 1 that is not at all to 4 that is exactly true. Some responses eventually yield a total score with higher scores, indicating feeling more or having higher self-efficacy. Now, about this particular scale, this general self-efficacy scale that is also referred to as GSE or GSES. This is a 2-mark question. Let me show this to you. Now, this is a psychological instrument that is designed to measure an individual's belief in their ability to handle difficult situations and achieve goals. See, if you read this, you'd understand this. Or even if you're not reading this, the word self-efficacy pretty much explains it all. Now, if we talk about the structure of this scale, this scale consists of 10 items. Each item ensures, or rather each item measures a different aspect of self-beliefs and coping ability. There are a couple of examples that we have written down over here as well. One of this is, I can always manage to solve difficult problems if I try hard enough. Or the second one over here says, I'm confident that I could deal efficiently with unexpected events. There are a couple of more as well. For instance, there is another item that says, if someone opposes me, I can find the means and way to get what I want. Another one that says, I can remain calm when facing difficulties because I can rely on my coping abilities. Another one that says, when I am confronted with a problem, I can usually find several solutions. Another one over here says, if I'm in trouble, I can usually think of a solution. Another one over here says, I can handle whatever comes my way. So there are a couple of more as well. These are a few items out of the 10 items that are there in the general self-efficacy scale. Now, having a look at the marking scheme again, measures perceived self-efficacy. Of course, we can pick that up from the word in itself. Example, I can always manage to solve difficult problems if I try hard enough. I just gave you an example of this. You could use any of this. It includes 10 items rated on a 4-point Likert scale. where 1 is equals to not at all and 4 means exactly true.